My name is Luke. I am a senior pastor of another local, not really local, but somewhat local in Newport News, right on the other side of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. It's a church, it's a first generation church. I grew up in this church. I've been in the States for 40 years. I'm a little 52 now, going on 52. So I've been here ever since I came to the States at age 10. I've been at this church. You know, of course, I've been going other places, and I came back as a senior pastor. Never in my life did I think that I would be a senior pastor of a first generation Korean church. So I'm the only full-time staff. We have like 350 in our church. I'm the only one. I preach in all, like Pastor John, I preach. We have 3 services. I preach in both languages, 2 in Korean, 1 in English. Now, having said that, what I would like to do is kind of defend, if I may, defend Korean pastor, first generation Korean pastor. Now, I'm 1.85, whatever. Do the math. But I have the unique perspective, I think, to become a first, so to speak, first gen Korean pastor, even though I'm not first gen, and I've had all the emotions and feelings probably a lot of the second generation pastors had about the Korean church, and specifically about the Korean church first generation pastors, all the bitterness and anger. Why do they do that? What's wrong with them? All of those feelings. And then now that I'm kind of one of them, so to speak, one of them, I just want to just defend them a little bit, okay? Man, it is busy. I am busy like crazy. You know what I mean? Like Pastor Joe, he just started, so he wants to develop, of course you want to develop relationships with every person in your church, and you want to know their intimate details of your life. You just don't have the time, man. And I think, I don't know, I'm not saying like the second gen churches or American churches, you're not busy, but I don't know. Pastor, I am so busy, dude. I preach, like we have morning prayer, right? I have to preach every morning. Wednesday evening worship. I lead worship and I preach. Sunday I have 3 worship services. I have to lead every prayer meeting, every Bible. I'm just crazy busy, right? And I'm willing to bet 90% of the first gen Korean pastors pastoring, it doesn't matter if you're a pastor of 50 or pastor of thousands. You still have morning prayer every morning. You still have Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, We're just busy. Right? I think I really kind of underestimated that aspect of Korean first generation pastors until I became one. And man, I don't know how I do it. I really don't know how I do it. By the grace of God. I don't know how these guys done it for years and years. Now, that's not an excuse. It's just just for us to kind of, I think, understand. I think it's important, and I'm also second gen pastor too, but I think it's important that we kind of have a attitude of just understanding one another, rather than just criticizing one another. And I think if we can, second gen pastors too, like you have to admit, we're younger, right? We're young. Second gen pastors younger. We're not as mature. And I see that in like the second gen pastors now who are younger than me. It's not an issue of what is wrong with the Korean church. It's issue of your lack of experience of what it means to really care for the flock, as well as being faithful unto the calling of God to preach and teach the Bible. And it's just so much. It's just so much. And I'm sure, Pastor Cole, he's nodding his head. It's true that first generation Korean pastors, you have to understand, we talked about in the other sessions how immigrant families, they just drop the kids off at Sunday school and expect the church to take care of them. And now that's definitely not the right attitude. And I feel what everyone is saying. And yeah, we need to rediscover this kind of family discipleship and all of that. But at the same time, as a pastor, when families dropping their kids off at church and expect the church to disciple them, I take that very seriously. Like we do have to disciple them. And so if there's nobody to do it, then I do it. And and it's just the way it is. And we just do it. And so when we do that, what happens to my own kids, right? And we talked about in the other session how immigrant kids only see the testimony of a pastor's kid there we read, right? He said, I only see my parents at church. I totally get it. I don't know how many times how many days I go through per week where I don't see my kids at all, right? But, they're all grown up. They're all in college and, so it's okay. It's okay. Right? Well, Jason, he's like smiling. I get it, right? And I don't mean to, right? But I just don't see them. I don't have to, like people ask me, oh, so what kind of food does your wife make? Well, you know what? I don't ever eat at home. I'm always at church or people are like taking me out. I don't ever eat at home. I mean, I say this as kind of a defense of kind of the Korean pastor side. And a lot of what you're saying about Japanese churches and all these other, look, those are not even on Korean pastors' radar, first generation. I mean, not everybody, but generally speaking, right? We're just barely surviving we're preaching average 10 times a week. You have to understand, average 10 times a week. People are coming to us. I have people coming to me. My phone is not working. Can you help fix it? They bring documents from their home. And these are elderly people. I mean, what are you going to do? I don't have time. No, I'll call, and this is a reality, right? And I understand that this is not healthy. I get it, right? I know it. It's not healthy, right? God blessed me with this kind of a youthful look, though, but it's soon going. I can see more white hair in my head. So I understand that. But, I say this to kind of, we have more second-gen pastors and non-first-gen pastors here, right? And you know why? I mean, I don't necessarily blame them. I don't say, man, see, they don't care about that. No, it's not that they don't care. They're busy, right? They have to preach and they have to talk to people and and so I get it. And so but we're here and I feel like we need to have this kind of a mutual understanding. I think challenges of first generation immigrant churches, we all know, we've worked with them and we lived it, we all know. But I think we need to have a kind of a sympathetic attitude toward them and approach them with a little bit of humility. And then we have to help them. It isn't that they don't care about the Great Commission. It's not that. It's just that they're so stinking busy. So we need to kind of go alongside them and kind of lead them, And I'm hoping that this Korean Christian Fellowship here, SBCV, would kind of somehow grow into that, right? And so that we can help the smaller Korean churches. I mean, I'm not concerned about big Korean churches that are out in California and the ODPCs and KCPCs, all of those churches, they have their own stuff. I'm talking about for every KCPC, right? There are thousands of churches, between 50 and 100. They can't afford full-time youth pastors, And so this kind of creating a ministry team that can maybe help. And this is what we're doing here in Hampton Roads area. We're doing what's called a 180 youth ministry. It's a joint youth ministry of the Korean American churches in our area. We have 14 churches. It's not really, Southern Baptist, but we just have about 12 to 14 Korean churches in Newport News and Hampton Roads area, right? Peninsula and Tidewater area. And we're the biggest church. We have a lot of kids. We even have young adults that can really help. But none of the kids are coming. My own kids don't want to come. So I'm sitting there in morning prayer. I'm like, God, this is crazy. They don't want to be here. They don't want to be here when there's only a handful of other kids, and there's such a big age gap and all of these things. And I'm like, okay. So I said to the Korean pastors, hey, can we just do something together? Right? So instead of my 5 kids, we have 15, but only 5 show up instead of my 5 kids. Maybe you get your 5 kids, our 5 kids, and 2 kids here, 3 kids there. And then maybe we can get a crowd. And we do. We've done this for 2 years now, and we have next one coming on this Saturday. We have 60, 70 youth kids coming to, we have seasonal quarterly rallies, youth rallies. And we just do it. It's non-denominational. We're not telling them to come to our church. We're just gathering these youth kids together and just sharing the gospel with them, right? It's not about theology. We're just pure gospel, right? Gospel. Get them excited to worship God, experience the presence of God and the power of the Holy Spirit. And they come into they get excited, and it's not because I had this revelation from it. It's because I wanted my own children to like coming to our church. But I feel like something like that is absolutely needed. There is a reason why none of the, only couple, because you guys have to be here, but no first generation Korean pastor is here. Everyone wants their church to have, active Bible ministry. Of course. First, they don't know what to do. 2, they're too busy. So I'm hoping that this kind of a fellowship that we have, that we can kind of create something that can help the smaller Korean churches. And from my notes, and I think one thing that I think that all Korean churches can do is reframing our kind of migration in a missional context, right? So instead of saying, everyone comes to U.S. because they want a better life, right? Instead of that being the explanation for immigration, perhaps we as pastors can try to reframe our immigrant experience and say, maybe this is missional, right? Maybe God sent us, right? And that there is actual purpose that we as Korean Americans can accomplish here in America. That this is not because our parents wanted a better life for us, but maybe it's God sending us. And I think there is a precedent in the scripture, and Brother Terry shared it from Hebrews 11. I mean, it says that Moses did not fear Pharaoh, but when you actually look at Exodus, he said he left because he was afraid. It's like this reframing that happens in Hebrews 11, right? It says by faith that Abraham waited, but he didn't really do that, right? He had, a thing with the fleeing with Hagar and had Ishmael. But Hebrews doesn't mention that. Hebrews reframes this in missionally. And I think that's something we as Korean pastors, I think we can do that. I think we need to reframe our immigrant experience as something that is missional, something that God is doing. Whether we come here to study theology and we end up staying, no, that's our situation, but God has something else in mind. And I think if we do that, and our sons and our daughters can have this sense, man, me coming to America wasn't because, my parents wanted a better education, but there was something bigger than that God is actually doing. And I think that's what I'm trying to do with our church people, right? And trying to reframe our immigrant experience as something that's God bringing you here with a missional purpose. And I think if that gets if our kids catch a glimpse of that, then they will, I think, have a sense of connection with their ethnic church, as well as this kind of a missional impetus to engage with the American culture. And I think I think this applies to all kind of immigrant churches, not just Korean churches. And I think that's something practically that as ministers we can reframe that for our people. Yeah, so I think this is great, and I hope to see next time many more Korean pastors, first generation Korean pastors, where we do need to teach in Korean. We do need simultaneous translation into Korean. I think that would be a beautiful thing. But great start. Thank you, Pastor Ko, and we will do what we can. All right? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.